Stepsons, I've had a lot of requests for how to iron a dress shirt. And as it happens, I've got some shirts that need ironing. So I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. There are some things you're going to need to do ironing. You'll need an iron. Often you need an extension cord just in case the plug's not long enough. And you'll probably want, time to dust. You will also want some distilled water. Get the ironing board out. Ironing boards, by the way, are not ironing boards unless they make a horrible noise when you put the legs down. Like that. I'm going to get our hanging rack. This is handy to just keep the shirts on while you're ironing them, and the shirts to be ironed. Oh, and one other thing. You'll want a good video to watch while you're doing your ironing, if you've got more than one shirt. Stepsons, if you don't have any of the stuff that I'm showing you here that you might need, I will put links in the description to things that you can get online that will allow you to do your own ironing going forward. For this iron, I can see the level of distilled water, and you use distilled water when you're putting it into an iron. So for this iron, pop that top up, and there's a little hole that I can pour it in. Carefully pour a little bit of distilled water into that hole. That's the process you would use for this iron to get distilled water in it so that it's ready if you want to use steam. Once you've got your ironing board set up, Stepsons, you want to get your iron plugged in so it can be warming up. Most irons will have an indicator on them for when they're hot enough. That's true for this one as well. And most irons also have a temperature setting. Right now this is on low. I'm going to rotate it up to a permanent press area. Now I've got an orange light indicating that it's not hot yet. Notice if I were to hold it here right now, my hand would start to get warming up because the heating surface is starting to heat up. So here's the indicator light. This one will turn green when it's up to temperature. So if I press the button for spray, it'll come out of this nozzle and hits my hand. If I do the steam, it comes out of here and it will moisten the shirt that I'm going to use. A couple things about dress shirts. A lot of them on the collars will have a little plastic insert that helps the collar out. You can either leave that in when you iron. Some of them don't come out. A lot of my shirts, they come out. So if you've got little tabs, let me show you what they look like. They look like this, or a smaller version of that, sometimes clear. They'll usually come to a point. If your collar has a place for it, and it's hard to see it on the camera, but there's a little spot sewn in here, and that little collar reinforcer tucks into that, goes to the corner. That helps keep the corner of your collar firm. So you can iron with it in, iron with it out. I usually take it out. So when you've got those out, I come to the sleeves, and most sleeves will have a cuff button and a wrist button. I undo the wrist button on each of the sleeves before I start, and then I'll button them back when I'm done. That way I know I've ironed the shirt. Not that you can't tell otherwise, but it's just a way for me to track where I'm at. So unbutton the cuff button or the wrist buttons on the sleeves, and then I'm going to do that on all the shirts I've got. That's part of my process flow. Make sure the iron's at temperature and at the right temperature for your fabric. If you're not sure, ironing temperature, ironing information, it's on here. 100% cotton. So in this case, I'm going to dial the temperature up a little bit more because the hottest section is linen and cotton, and I'm in a permanent press zone. So now it's gone to orange. So now let me tell you a dad joke while it's heating up. There's a guy that goes to work one Monday morning and comes in, and there's a guy who's got his face is burned on both cheeks. It's like got red patches on his cheeks. And his coworker says, well, what happened? He says, well, you know, I was ironing at home and the phone rang And I thoughtlessly just put it up on my cheek, and it burned it. And his coworker said, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry to hear that, but how did you get it on the other side?" And he said, "Well, the dang idiot called back." This is how I like to do it. You can find your own rhythm. I start with the collar. So flatten the collar out, iron the collar. Don't let it sit in one spot for a long time because you'll burn the fabric potentially. Once I've done the collar, I switch to the sleeves. The sleeves are usually the hardest part. Grab it at the shoulders and pull it apart at the seams, lay it flat, spread it out. Here's the challenge with sleeves, is if you iron this side and it looks smooth and you've got a wrinkle in the back, you just ironed a wrinkle into your sleeve. Get it as smooth as you can and then put your iron on and wiggle it around. If you need to, give it some steam. You can press the steam button. To do cuffs or wrists is opening up both buttons, and then you can flatten it pretty much. Get the iron on there. Go in as far as it will till it kind of hits, and you're smoothing out the cuff all around. If the cuff has pleats, like most of them do, that's okay. So this one has pleats, meaning a little folded over seam that's sewn in, and you're ironing it from the sewn in edge out to the sleeve, and so it doesn't really matter that you're going to have a wrinkle. You're going to iron a wrinkle into it. So that's how I do cuffs. I do come back over on both sides and look and see, okay, I've got my top crease ironed. I'm coming back now. I got to make sure I don't have wrinkles underneath. Pull it out like that. Now I'm going to do this surface, and the closer I get to the cuff, the more careful I want to be that I don't have wrinkles underneath. And that's how you do it. Once I've done that, looks pretty good, then I button, and the fabric's hot by the way too, so don't burn yourself. But I'll do that wrist button. It's kind of my way of saying I've done this side, now I can go to the other side. Get a close-up shot of how I do this sleeve so you can see. Pull it apart. Wow, a little yellow armpit there. Pull it apart so that it's stretched across at the shoulder. Then pull it as flat as you can. Sometimes I'll go up with my arm in here and spread it out with my hand as I come down, just to try to make sure there's no wrinkle on both sides. Then you can do from the shoulder towards the wrist, and just make sure it's good and smooth. Hold it like that, don't burn yourself. Again, here's a pleat in this wrist, so pleats are like that. And just go over them once you've got it in position. Now I'm going to turn it over and see, I didn't have any wrinkles in this side, so that's good. But to do that wrist like I did the other one, open it up, and I just go in the cuff and down this way. Here you can see the pleats better. I'm not sure what a pleat is. That's what a pleat is, where it's sewn under and looks like that. You'll see those in pants and in sleeves and in shirts sometimes. I had a fashion consultant, told me that pleats in pants are for fat people. I liked pleats, so I was a little disappointed. I was disappointed to hear that. Okay, so I've done this cuff. I'm going to do the button up the wrist button, and this side's ready to go. Turn this back over, and I look at this sleeve after, and it looks like some of the wrinkles are coming back a little bit. So I'm going to go on it and hit it with a little steam. Besides, that's just fun to do. But that will help take the wrinkles out and then iron it flat with the heat right after. So now we've got the main body of the shirt to do. What do you do if your iron doesn't have a steam or squirt function on it? You can just get a squirt bottle and spray it, even with tap water, if you need to moisten the fabric. So the next part is the main body of the shirt, the front two halves and the back solid. You'll notice that there's two shapes on an ironing board. This one comes to a wedge at the top. The back is just a rounded rectangular end. The reason they have them that way is because you'll use them in different scenarios. If I'm doing the wedge, I'm going to put it down my sleeve, and I can iron the top of my shoulder that way. So that lets me spread the shirt out, and I can iron the top of my shoulder using the wedge side. So I will do that for both sleeves or both shoulders. Again, be careful not to iron a wrinkle into it. It's not the end of the world if you do, but obviously that defeats the purpose of ironing a shirt, to get the wrinkles out if you're ironing them in. So now I've ironed my shoulders on the wedge side. Next, we come to the rectangular side, and we can put the shirt over this so that it lies flat on this front quarter panel or half panel. Sounds like automotive dialogue. So when I've got it spread out on the ironing board like this, you can see how it's wrinkled underneath. Hold it with your hands if you need to. And the iron also has a wedged tip for this reason, so you can get between things like buttons. So I come through here while I'm holding it out away from the hot part of the iron, keeping it flat. I want to give it a shot of steam to help hold it flat, and do in between the buttons. Steam's as much for fun as it is for function, but it does do both. You got to be careful with the steam too, because steam burns and you can't take it immediately away. It dissipates fairly quickly, but if you get a steam burn, you're going to be hurting until it cools down. All right, so then I move it up to where you could go and tuck this corner on the shoulder so you're seeing the back side now, and smooth it out and iron this surface. If it's got gathers on anywhere on the shirt, if they're pleats, then you just go over them. Well, I'll show you that on a different shirt in a minute. Otherwise, just go over it and hold it out, get it smooth all around. Then, when you've got that part done, shift it up this way. So this is the shoulders, the top of the shoulders of the shirt. Tuck it into the armpit or the shoulder of this side. Spread it out. Most of this has already been done. Now I'm just going to do the rest of this over here. And this part's quick and easy, but be careful that you don't iron a wrinkle into your shirt. And finally, rotate it around, do the last quarter panel. Here, looks like I've got a little bit of a wrinkle ironed in there. Hit it with some steam. And once we've done that, iron all this smooth, but this is really irrelevant because if you tuck in, then no one's going to see this anyway. Along the buttons, along the top, however, those are the most visible part of your shirt, is this front quarter panel and the other side that we did on the first side. So that is ironing a dress shirt. Once you're done ironing it, if your shirt has the removable collar stiffeners, tuck those back in, fold the collar over. So stepsons, that's how you iron a dress shirt. Remember, if you're growing up and your dad's not in your daily life, you can still succeed. You can learn the things you need to know. And always remember, you do have a dad that loves you, because I love you. And I'll see you on the next video.